All right, everybody. How's everyone doing? Great. Thanks, everyone, for coming to the final council meeting of 2025. I'll just start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle-Walyap area and recognize that their culture and heritage beliefs are still important today. And I also acknowledge that we meet here today on land that was never ceded, and I wholeheartedly support the many campaigns for truth-telling, justice, and reconciliation, both here and across this country. Good. So we're on to attendance, apologies, and leaves of absence. So we have Councillor Andrew Sullivan, who is on a leave of absence, and both Councillor Moughlin and Van Dorsen are apologies tonight. Do we have any applications for leave of absence from councillors here today? Councillor Graham.
Yes, Mr Mayor, it's on the running sheet, so I didn't think we perhaps had to disclose it, do we? But anyway, I'm applying for a leave of absence, as it says, on Saturday the 7th of February to Sunday the 15th of February, inclusive. If that's okay.
You're going to move that? Great. Second by Councillor Wong. All those in favor? Great. I was going to ask for those to be moved a second, but do we have someone to move Councillor Graham's? Is that the one you did, or did you just move? Can we have someone move for Councillor Van Dorsen between Friday the 23rd of January to the 15th of February inclusive? Councillor Clark moved, seconded. Councillor Kamada. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. And thanks for keeping the meeting moving, Councillor Graham. Do we have any disclosures of interest tonight by members? Seeing none, we'll go on to responses to previous public questions taken on notice. The responses are provided on the agenda. Are there any questions about those responses? Seeing none, I will move on to public question time. And now, because tonight is kind of our de facto planning meeting, what we do is we have some planning items on the agenda. So if you're here for one of those items, you can either speak now during the public question time or before that item comes up for discussion. That way, if there's any questions from elected members, they can ask those and you could potentially answer them. But for here tonight, we have, I'll just go in the order and the sign in. Well, actually, okay, one for one and one for two. So maybe I'll start with the items that are not planning items, and we'll start with Mary Ann Goodlich. Great. And for those people who haven't been here before, when you go to speak, you have 3 minutes to speak. And at that 3-minute mark, a bell will sound. And we just ask that you wrap up your comments as quickly as you can after that. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, councillors. What is the value of having a complaints handling policy if procedural fairness is compromised, determinations take 6 months to finalise, and the policy is not applied in good faith? I refer to the Council Code of Conduct Division 3 Code of Conduct Complaint Handling Policy, and specifically to Section A and B regarding the publication of findings. This section states that within 14 days of the investigator's decision, the complaints officer must, 1, provide both the complainant and the respondent with a copy of the finding and the relevant report excluding attachments, and publish the report excluding attachments on the city's website. Given these clear obligations, can ratepayers reasonably expect transparency, accountability, and natural justice in the council's complaint handling processes? Will the determinations made by the City of Fremantle bring the truth into the open or keep the community in the dark? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Did you want to reply? Or just...
Through the chair, there is an item, a confidential item on the agenda for tonight's meeting, which the council will deliberate on later this evening.
Thank you. Next, we've got John Dowson for the same item. Thank you, John.
Yes, good evening. Look, I'm a bit of a copycat with the previous speaker, but I did prepare this separately, and I realise the item is confidential, but that, to me, it shouldn't be, but it apparently is. So tonight on the agenda, on the late agenda, it's C251219, elected member code of conduct complaint. Now it's confidential, so the public aren't told who this item relates to. So I want to ask two hypothetical questions. And I do just want to quickly reiterate what Mary Ann said about council's own policy, which we got a copy from the website. And what does your policy say? It says, in terms of publication of findings of breaches, within 14 days of a decision by the investigator, the complaints officer must, not may, must give the complainant and the respondent a copy of the finding and a copy of complaints officer or investigator reports, minus any attachments, and B, publish the complaints officer or investigator report, minus all attachments, on the city's website. So the two hypothetical questions are, A, has council followed its own policy regarding tonight's item? And B, will councillors in their deliberations consider what action they can take given some misconduct, which is the subject of code of conduct complaints, is a lot more serious than others, to make sure that any serious consequences alleged and proven do not reoccur, and that the subject of the whole matter, which is the backstory, is fairly dealt with and in a balanced way, as the Fremantle Society has always sought. Thank you.
Just through the chair, we'll make one further comment. The complainant in the matter that's being referred to in the confidential item this evening has been provided with the suggested course of action as a result of the investigation.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak during public question time? Or just go to the items? Okay, great. Well, then we'll call these other speakers up as we get to the items on the agenda. But next up, we have petitions. Are there any petitions here tonight? Oh, my time's up. All right, I'll be quick, everyone. Next, we have deputations, presentations. Okay, confirmation of minutes. Can I have someone move the minutes from the last meeting? Williamson Wong, seconded. Councillor Slaughter. All those in favor of accepting those? It's unanimous. Thank you. Elected member communication. All right, I've actually got something tonight. Just wrote a few notes. So last week, I believe it was, Glenn and I attended the Perth Southwest Metropolitan Alliance meeting of the 6 Southwest Councils. And it was my first one attending as mayor, or attending period. And the discussion there was heavily about AUKUS and the fact that they were doing 2 more public town hall meetings, one in Rockingham, one in Coburn, coming up very soon. And that we were at that point in time still waiting for replies to some of the questions that were asked at the town hall meeting here in Fremantle several months ago. So that was an interesting conversation. I'll leave it at that. But the other part of the meeting dealt with the strategic direction of the group. And it was pretty heartening to hear folks around the room not just wanting to focus on AUKUS, but bring in some other issues that we can work on collectively. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what we can do with the other 5 councils that are part of that. So we'll keep you guys updated as the meetings progress. All right. Any other elected member communication? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I wish to speak about the proposed Pier 21 Marina redevelopment. The Pier 21 Marina has long been a point of concern for the surrounding community in that area and broader community in Fremantle. Many will recall that in its original approval was given despite significant public opposition and without support from the city back in the day. Its construction resulted in the loss of important public access to the river, access our community continues to value and to fight to preserve. The current redevelopment proposal raises several serious issues. The jetties are proposed to extend further into the river by about 15 to 20 metres into what I understand is the narrowest part of the river, and that intrusion alone presents substantial impacts on river use, ecology and amenity. There's a proposal for 14 jet ski bays to go in there. There are no jet ski bays in that marina at the moment. The jet skis are inherently noisy and they move very fast. This section of the river is where dolphins are regularly seen and where they calve and raise their young. It's simply not an appropriate location for this level of high-speed activity. The two things are completely incompatible. While the total number of pens is reduced, this is only in numbers, this is only to increase the size of the pens, shifting the marina to a much larger, to have much larger boats there. The size of the boats it was never intended for. Vessel lengths don't increase. When you increase the size of a vessel, it doesn't increase in the way that is proportional. The height goes up obviously as well. So a 12-metre vessel sits at roughly 3 metres high, and a 15-metre vessel sits at around 5.5 metres high due to its fly bridge that gets added on top. The proposal is asking for vessels up to 24 metres in length. When a boat is 24 metres in length, it's essentially considered a yacht. So it's a whole new thing. With larger vessels comes more people, more passengers who need more parking, who bring more noise and larger groups and increased parking pressures on the area. The neighbourhood is already constrained. The streets are narrow. Many residents rely on parking because they don't have that option. They don't have driveways. It's an older area. And the area experiences an additional demand from Gil Fraser Oval already on the weekends and during the week from people who are, you know, businesses servicing the existing marina. The city has provided technical comments to the DBCA, and they've been forwarding all the community feedback that has been received, and we continue to do so even though the submissions have closed on it. We want to acknowledge that the applicant has made some changes in response to the city's information and requests, but the residents are clear and they're consistent. They're asking for a redevelopment that replaces like with like, not increasing the size and scale, and a position that doesn't transform this small local marina into something that is catering for yachts. The site has no overflow parking, there's no public toilets, and there's no bins. It was never intended to function as a yacht club. Myself and Councillor Ingrid Van Dawson, who will be watching from home tonight, hi Ingrid, we are sending a letter to the DBCA that will be going off tomorrow to put forward the views of the residents against the increase in size in the marina. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other elected member communication? Councillor Graham.
Look, yeah, I acknowledge what Councillor Clark just went on about, but it's not really elected member communication. In my view, the elected member communication is where we are actually, like you had, Mr Mayor, represented the city at a serious meeting, to sit here and listen to something that will end up coming to council anyway, to me is not elected member communication, but something that Councillor Clark might feel serious about at the moment, but I don't think it's for this chamber at this very moment.
I appreciate that, Councillor Graham. I'm not certain that that's actually going to come to council. So, and generally speaking, I'll try to give elected members a really broad leeway in what they choose to speak about during elected member communication. But I acknowledge your point on that. So if it gets too, you know, raucousy, yeah, we may have to revisit that. But I think that's my default. All right. If there's no other elected member communication, we will move on to the agenda as printed, starting with the High Street item, number 1. And we do have a speaker listed on this, Julius Skinner. Thank you. And Julius, like I said, you have about 3 minutes, and then the bell will sound. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Thomson Gear has been advising the owners of 64 High Street for a while. I'm here on their behalf tonight because they're travelling overseas and weren't able to be here in person. In July this year, the city approved a development approval to change the use of most of this building to a hotel. At the time, a couple of tenancies on the ground floor were intended to remain as shops, but one of those tenancies has become available to be added to the hotel, and that's what the current application is about, essentially changing the use of that tenancy on the ground floor from shop to hotel, along with the rest of the, or most of the rest of the building. The area is going to be used mainly to expand the foyer and reception area of the hotel, and allows for an internal reorganisation of some other spaces already approved for the hotel use. Look, I don't have much to say about it because the application is recommended for approval, which the applicant is very grateful for. And the report to council covers sort of most, if not all, of the relevant matters. Apart from one very minor issue, the applicant's also very happy with the conditions that are proposed. The conditions are clearly intended, I think, to reflect or to mirror the conditions of the approval that was granted in July. And the one very minor issue, which I'd identified, I think, in the deputation request, was in relation to condition 4. There was an amendment that was made to condition 4 in July, which hadn't been picked up, I think, in the proposed condition 4 on this item. And it's just suggested that should be amended just to ensure that the conditions are in fact mirrored across the 2 approvals. It was just a reference, I think, to either 2 lots being amended to consisting of multiple strata lots. But that was the only issue we raised. Unless there are any questions or comments from councillors which I can try to address, but otherwise that's all we wanted to raise tonight.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant from elected members, or perhaps I'll just ask Chloe to speak to the condition 4. Thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Skinner is correct. It's a minor drafting error, so we've got no objection to that minor change to reflect multiple lots.
Wonderful. Any other speakers on this item? No. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. If I could get someone to move. Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Graham. All right. That opens for debate if there is any.
I'll just make a quick comment. Yeah, thanks for coming in to speak, Julius. Look, I think with that tenancy vacancy becoming available unexpectedly, as I'm led to believe, it's allowed a practical internal reorganisation, which I think will help it's an approved, it was approved in the past, and it's just going to help this operation flow a lot better. So I think it's, I'll thoroughly support the officer's recommendation. I think it's a fortunate thing that will, and a good thing. Thank you.
Any other comment? I'm just real briefly on this one because it wasn't raised. The original approval, this shop kind of formed a little bit of a buffer between this, proposed hotel and the neighboring club that does often play loud music, sometimes later into the evenings. And having the foyer there, some of the sound could now come through. So I just wanted to note that it's a challenge that we're potentially could be facing, and hopefully everyone in this chamber will have some suggestions on how we might tackle that in the future coming to us. All right, so if there's no other further comment on this item, just put it to a vote. All those in favor? Right. All those against? And it's Councillor Clark against, and Williamson, Wong, Lawver, Kamada, Graham, and Slaughter in favor. So that item passed, so you've got an approval this evening. All right, on to item 2, Oldham Crescent. We do have a speaker for this as well. 2 speakers, Mark, Ralph, and Diana Najjar. Did I get that close enough? Yeah. Okay, my apologies if it wasn't. All right, great, thank you.
Good evening, councillors, Mr. Mayor. Today I'll be speaking about some of the points our neighbors have some concerns. I'm the designer of 41A Oldham Crescent, a residential. That is a battle axe. So while I'm going through these 5 points, am I able to give you a... Just because this site is a very interesting site, it has a 45-degree angle, which constrains the design a little bit. So point number one, response regarding noise pollution and design adjustments. In response to concern raised about potential noise impact from northeast wall, we have amended the design accordingly. The received plans now include no window opening on that wall, effectively mitigating any noise-related issue. Point number two, second floor height compliance. The proposed second floor height remains within the allowable design requirement of 6.5 meters. Additionally, given that the dwelling is situated on a battle axe lot, positioned naturally towards the rear of the property, the development will not obstruct or visually disturb the surrounding suburban landscape. West boundary wall and site constraints. Due to a constraining geometry of the block, particularly the 45-degree corner, the proposal includes the construction of a demising/parapet wall along the western boundary. This design choice optimizes the use of available space while also allowing the building to open towards the backyard area in a functional and aesthetic cohesive manner. Privacy measures for neighborhood properties. Neighbor privacy has been carefully considered in the design. Existing lush grapevine coverage of approximately 20 square meters will function as a natural privacy screen. This is complemented by a double lattice structure and green shade cloth, ensuring a high level of screening and minimal visual impact on neighboring properties. Point number 5, the proposal does not seek to alter the existing boundary line in any way. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mark, did you wish to speak? No, it's all right. All right, anyone else to speak on this item? No, okay, all right. Well, we can have someone move item 2. Councillor Williamson-Wong, and seconded by Councillor Clark. Great, let's open that for discussion.
Thanks. I'm happy to speak and open this. I think when I saw the plans for this lot, it felt like a very Fremantle design and consideration. So I'm glad that it's come to council, because these are sort of the designs that we're looking, I believe that we're kind of trying to get in Fremantle, rather than just the kind of standard 4x2s that go on lots, which we also know have similar, if not more, issues with things like overshadowing and privacy. So great work. I'm keen to see this built, hopefully with support tonight, and thanks for explaining all those things to us.
Any other comment? All right, I'll just add the bit about the tree. Thank you for designing around the tree. It's a very unique way to meet that challenge, and you didn't necessarily have to, but the policy encouraged you to, and I appreciate that. All right, well, if there's no other comment, we'll put this one to a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We got approval tonight. So, great. All right, now we've got the rest of our planning. We've got a whole heap of policy changes and potential changes and things, but most of these are going out for public comment at some point in February. So what I'd like to do is just to see if anyone wants to speak on any of these, because these will be coming back to us largely. If you want to speak on them, I'll pull them out separately, but otherwise we can just move as many as we can on block. Yes, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Did anyone else want to speak on any of the remaining items 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, or 9? No? All right. Well, if that's okay, I will move all of those on block. Can I get, or I won't move those. Can I ask someone to move those on block? Sorry. Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Williamson-Wong. All those in favor? Great. That's unanimous. And then we'll go back to item 6. Do we have someone to move that? Councillor Williamson-Wong, seconded by Councillor Graham.
Thanks. Look, I'll be very brief. The only reason I think it's important to speak about this is because it is quite a big change, and I think what we are changing in this is important to acknowledge, that being the development exemptions from small bars coming out similarly with the change from the restaurants to a small bar in a neighbourhood centre or the city centre, and to acknowledge the role that that exemption has played in creating the Fremantle and probably South Fremantle that we have today, because we know that when that was introduced, it was very hard to get small bars going. And while we're now on the flip side and we probably think that there's a proliferation and it's creating noise issues, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact, the use of that exemption, and thank the past council for passing that. But understand that it's probably time for us to be a bit more careful about where small bars exist, especially with noise complaints and balancing residential and commercial uses. So I did want to note that. And I guess also be cheeky, talk about local planning policy changes generally, and just note that we are seeing a lot of local planning policies change in their language. We heard John Dowson and Marianne talk before about must versus may, and that language is obviously really important. And in planning policy, we're seeing the state government make sure that we change all of our language so that it's all discretionary, which is a change, and I think important to remember as we see different, documents come through for review.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson Wong. Any other comment? If there's no further comment, take that as closing as well. Great. We'll put that item up for a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Great. We got through all the policy updates or out for advertising. Now we have general reports. Item 10 is the proposed construction of a temporary car park on Quarry Street. And I have someone move that item. Councillor Williamson Wong, seconded by Councillor Graham.
Thanks. It's going to be the Jemima show tonight. Sorry, everyone. I'll try and talk briefly. Look, I am happy to see this come through. I think it's important to talk about why we are building yet another car park, which is what it's going to be seen as by the community, and be clear that the reason that that is happening is because the PTA has taken our Beach Street car park, which, as we know, is where a lot of our staff park, but is also an important car park in the city. That will be turned into a Smart Rider park and ride, which is part of the bridge closure, which we'll talk about later. But that means that we do need to find other car parks in the city. And yes, we need to be supporting active transport, but we also know that local businesses often say that the parking is a problem and that they need places for their staff to park and for customers to park. So balancing both of those is important. That's probably what I'll open with, but I do have a question. There's an amendment in the additional docs. Thank you to Councillor Sullivan for his help, although not here tonight. Really around whether or not we approve the construction of the temporary car park on, as proposed in the officer's recommendation, or we limit it to lot 802 in the amended version. Before I move that, I think it would be important to get some more context around the cost difference in constructing the amended version versus the officer's recommendation, and secondly, what would be needed / how long would it take to remove a temporary car park if it was installed and then there was a development opportunity to put on the area that's not going to become a car park, etc.
I'm going to pass it over to you, Graham, if that's all right.
Thank you, through the chair. Most of the cost will be in setup and preliminaries and site establishment and traffic management in terms of building the car park. So really, it'll be minimal, the cost differential between 802 and the whole area. We would estimate about $30,000 to $40,000 difference, less than 10% of the cost of the works. It's only a true grid permeable surface, very easy to move. I think most of the work really will be in the sub-base, so it's probably quite a good thing to get the site levelled and put a sub-base in, and it'll be quite adaptable. So I don't think it's too big of an issue to adapt.
Thank you for clarifying. I have a further question, which is, See, I had a coffee before, but now I can't remember what my question was. Oh, the question is, if a development opportunity comes through for that site, will that come back to council to delete those or to remove the car bays, or is it something that will happen operationally?
Yeah, I think through the chair, it does depend on what proposal actually does come back, but I would assume it would probably need to come back through council.
Look, I'm open to other elected members. I did want to include the amendment in the additional docs because I felt like we needed to get a bit more information. Based on that, I'm not convinced that we do need to limit the size of the car park if it's minimal difference in cost to install the extra car bays. I think we may as well just use the space, get the site ready for as long as we can, and when a development application, or if a development opportunity and application comes through, then they're able to access that site. But I'm very happy for another elected member to move that amendment if they wish.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Councillor Kamara.
Oh yeah, I'll just comment on the item. Based on the information that we've just received, I'm quite happy with the officer's recommendation and feel that there's enough flexibility down the track to be able to make future decisions. And you know, given that we've lost that PTA parking, it makes sense to use a space that hasn't been used and has been in question in terms of what we can do in the future. So let's use it practically at this time.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on the Quarry Street car park? Councillor Slaughter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just have a concern about the length of, the appearance of that site being not available for a proponent to come forward. So I would happily support the preparation and construction of a car park across all of the lots, if it wasn't tied to a must stay for payback number of years necessarily. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? How could we have a car park across the whole site but say, actually, PS, it's available for development should the right proposal come through?
Great question. Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and try this one, but please let me know if I get it wrong, anyone. Because it is temporary in nature, if there was because we've been trying to sell this piece of property for a while. If someone came by and said, hey, here's a whole bucket of money, more than what we've been asking, I think we could pull up the car park and sell it, or entertain development applications. I don't think this restricts us in any way. This item just is before us just tonight as this. So a future council can make a different decision.
Sorry, through the chair, I'll answer that question. I was just trying to pull it up on the screen. Literally all we're saying is that we'll pay back the reserve account rather than just let those funds fall away over time. And as we said, any other further consideration will come back to council for conversation anyway. And I don't think we put a timeline on how long this car park might be here. We're just saying it's temporary at the moment.
Any other comment or question? Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, yes, I support the officer's recommendation on this one and not the proposed amendment. This site's been problematic, well, since I got on council in 2019. Council was trying to sell it, and it's the laneway that's held up every potential sale of this site. And I don't know, it's been going on for so long, I can't remember whether council's ever actually gone out and tried to sell it without the laneway. But I'm sure if we perhaps took the laneway out of the consideration for sale, it would mostly be snapped up. So, so I don't particularly think we need a laneway to go through a car park when you can get out of the car anyway and walk straight over to the park. I imagine that will still happen. So it does, as Councillor Slaughter said, it'd look rather a bit nonsense. Wouldn't it be a little bit stupid looking? But anyway, look, I think the officers, wherever this thing is sitting at the moment, the officer's recommendation is the right way to go.
Right, thank you, Councillor Graham. Any other comment? Seeing none, I'll put this item up for a vote. All those in favour? And it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. On to item 11, response to petition pedestrian crossing along South Terrace. Can I have someone move that? Councillor Williamson Wong, and seconded by Councillor Slaughter. Go ahead. Open debate.
Wow, I did warn you all. I am excited that this is coming back to us. As we know, Rupert McCracken presented a petition to us a few weeks ago in regards to pedestrian prioritised crossings across South Terrace, Douro Road and Marine Terrace. From within the report, we also know that the Douro Road roundabout project is ongoing at the moment. It's been out for community consultation, and that is a separate project but very closely related to this, so they are being kind of talked about together, although just noting that this is really around the installation of zebra crossings along South Terrace, Douro Road and Marine Terrace rather than the roundabout works that are out for community consultation at the moment. I will also note, and we have discussed this, that the report says that there are approximately 900 signatures, but I did receive an email from Rupert to clarify that it was closer to 950 and wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged on the record, because it is important for anyone who signs a petition to feel like they have been properly counted and that it counts as a signature, and I have had confirmation that staff are going to be more careful about counting the exact signatures that we have in petitions going forward. I also have an amendment for this item this evening, which I will introduce, if I can move that.
Do we have someone to second the amendment? Councillor Slaughter?
Thank you, Councillor
So now
Slaughter.
we're just speaking to the amendment.
Yes, I'm just speaking to the amendment. So I've put this amendment up because I felt as though the recommendation didn't necessarily talk about the crossing of Marine Terrace, which is important, and also the other conversation that we're having alongside whether or not we can install or should install, and where we should install the zebra or wombat crossings, is the efficacy of the current road calming infrastructure along South Terrace and Marine Terrace. So we know that we have speed humps, and we also know that we have the nodes, and important to review whether or not we think they're doing what they should do, or maybe they are doing what they were designed to do, but that's not necessarily the priority anymore. So just asking that the report that comes back to Council in May will include details of the traffic speeds and volumes, the efficacy of that current road calming infrastructure, and also consideration of the options for placement and costings of those zebra and or wombat crossings as requested in the petition. Wombat crossings are the zebra crossings that are raised on a speed hump, which I'm not really sure why they're called wombat crossings, because we don't have wombats in Western Australia as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's a question for another day. But I do think that it's important that we also specify the work that officers will do, because we know that it will be tied into budget discussions, and so having a report that has the costing and some ideas of where we might place this infrastructure is important, but noting that in the meantime, between now and May, a lot of work will happen by staff in also talking to Main Roads to see what they're going to be comfortable with us doing. So that is why I have specified these things in the amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments on the amendment as proposed? Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Could we perhaps get the officers to comment on the proposed amendments along the lines of, how long this is going to take? I mean, I'm reading lots of dollars in here, and where it will all come from, and when we'll make those sort of decisions.
Good question.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, we will pick this level of information up when we look at the nodes and we do the review and we engage with Main Roads. You're correct, it will be relatively expensive. But what we intend to do is bring a report back to Council that quantifies that and talks about the positioning and the potential costs, and it will likely say that any proposal then is moved forward for consideration as part of the budget process.
Any other comment or questions on the amendment? Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think it's important to go forward with this proposed amendment, as Councillor Williamson Wong has put. I think when we know better, we can do better. So we do need to find out, as Councillor Williamson Wong mentioned, are the nodes doing what they are supposed to do? before we spend money on more nodes instead of any other options that may or may not be better. So.
Great, thank you. Any other comment, or do you wish to close on the amendment?
On the amendment, just to clarify that any costs will have to go through a budget process. This is, of course, not saying that we can do any of this. And in actual fact, it might mean that we take certain things out of our long-term financial plan, and that means that there's money for other things. So I guess that's also why I think it's important that we look at whether or not the infrastructure that's currently installed is working.
Seeing as you've just closed, we'll put this amendment up for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, now back to the item as amended. You will open, so if you speak, you'll be closing. Do we have any comments on the item as amended? No, all right. Well, then we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favor? Great, unanimous. On to item 12, the public artwork update. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Slaughter, seconded by Councillor Clark. All right, any debate on the public artwork update? I'm not trying to say the first bit of that.
KBN.
KBN. All right, seeing none, I'll put this for a vote. All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous. Now, on to advocacy for the bridge closure information report. There are a couple proposed amendments for this, but can I get a mover for the item? Councillor Slaughter, seconded by Councillor Williamson-Wong. Did you want to open, Councillor Slaughter? Oh, good.
Great. Back to me. Look, I appreciate the officers have brought this through. As we know, the bridge is closing on the 1st of Feb, and we have had a number of announcements from we had a batch of announcements from the state government and Main Roads Bridge Alliance about what we might do to mitigate the impact of this. We know that 25,000-ish cars cross the old bridge every day, and that is a lot of people that we either need to incentivise intermodal shift, get them to enter Freo or exit Freo a different way, or at different times of the day. We also have had discussions about thinking that while what has been announced is very useful, we might still be facing a bit of a Carmageddon, as it's being called. And so as mentioned at our last council meeting, myself, Councillor Clark, Councillor Van Dawson, and some members of staff went to meet with Simone McGurk to put forward our position, our advocacy position for further announcements or actions that we wish to see. That is now being brought back to us through the report, the officer's report tonight. But I do think that it is important that we are clear about what our advocacy position is, and even, you know, the conversations about the bridge have been going on for a long time, and our advocacy position has not necessarily been clear, in my opinion, either to our community in communicating what we're asking for or within elected members. And this is an opportunity for us to be very clear with each other so that we're all on the same page, and when we're out talking to community members and stakeholders about what we are asking for. And that is why I have an amendment, although I did want to clarify whether or not it's actually an alt, because it's endorsing. We're going to note and endorse. Question, sorry.
Through the chair, what we've done is we keep the original officer's recommendations part 1 and add yours as a part 2. So it's an amendment at this stage. And what I might also ask, we know that Councillor Clark also has a slight amendment. Whether you want to combine those and just move them all in one hit or not.
Yes. Shall I perhaps move my amendment now? If someone is happy to second, then I can speak to the amendment.
Do you want to add the other bit?
Oh, do you at the same time? Oh, would you like? Yes, please.
Just through the chair, we have combined the two for you with some wording. If you're happy to move that way, we'll pop it on the screen so you can have a look at it before that happens. It's essentially the same as what you've done. The reason it's not an alternative recommendation is that it's adding to what we already were proposing in the officer's recommendation.
Yes.
And I'll just wait for Councillor Clark to be happy with the wording that's up there, and Councillor Williams.
For clarification, what you're looking at, the parts that are in yellow are the additions that Councillor Clark has put together, and we've made some suggestions around what that should read like for clarification.
I'm happy. Yeah, happy to move that all together. Thank you.
Great, and then I'm seconded by Councillor Clark. Great.
Great. I'm going to talk through the amendment basically point by point to be clear about what we're asking for, because I think it's important for us all to be across it. So the first is public transport incentives. We know that Main Roads has said that they want to have 10% of users shift onto public transport, and the current incentives include the park and ride car park that they've taken off us at Beach Street, and also the getting school kids onto buses. What we are asking for in addition to that is permitting bikes on trains at any time from Fremantle to Claremont. So we know that the connection between North Fremantle and Fremantle on the PSP is poor, and that by allowing bikes on trains, people will be able to move much easier. The second one is free transit for Smart Rider users who consistently tag on and off at Fremantle. And I did want to just be very clear about this one, because even in the Freo mag that was printed most recently, it was not printed as free transit. It was printed as a free transit zone, which is not what this is. And we need to be very careful in our language, because the two sound very similar, but they're very different things. A free transit for Smart Rider users who consistently tag on and off at Fremantle is not very fun to say, but the reason that it is included in here and as discussed in the report is that it incentivizes individual users of public transport who are travelling maybe further than just within Fremantle. So people who are commuting to the city or into Fremantle from other suburbs. And it also captures people who might be coming from places like Melville or other suburbs that are not necessarily on the train line or within Fremantle. And this has been delivered by the state government before. They used the model in the Armidale line shutdown. Basically, if you tagged on and off consistently, I think it was twice a week for 3 months, your Smart Rider was automatically tagged and it was free whenever you tagged on and off. So this is saying, why don't we have that for people who consistently tag on and off at Fremantle? It could be you tag on and off at Fremantle 3 times a week consistently for a month, and your Smart Rider is made free. The state government can decide if they would like to implement this, how they would like to implement this. But we've had conversations that this would incentivise people more than just a free transit zone within Fremantle, which, while useful for people to access things close by, is not going to incentivise the actual user group of commuters across the bridge who we need to shift. The second is freight restrictions during peak periods. We know that for some very strange reason, trucks often fall over at 5 p.m. And so we're asking for trucks to not run during peak hours and then enabling them to run during off-peak hours. Again, that is a state responsibility through the port. The third, support for temporary local road interventions. We know already that there are a number of route running, happening, and we know that local streets are already affected and will continue to be affected. And so being able to deliver interventions that we already have provided for in our Safe Streets policy mean that we can help alleviate the traffic on those local roads, and safer speeds of 30 to 40 kilometres an hour on local roads, which we already have in many of our neighbourhood centres, will make it much safer for people on bikes and who are walking. The statistic is that if you get hit by a car at 50 kilometres an hour, there's a 90% chance that you will die. But if you get hit by a car at 30 kilometres an hour, there's a 10% chance. So we know that reducing the speed really makes a difference. And the fourth is infrastructure improvements to support active transport, increase safety. And to be clear, Councillor Graham, we're asking for funding from the state government to deliver this and not our own, because we believe that it's the state's responsibility to provide and upgrade the safe, accessible, legible connection. And the advocacy of the Fremantle Bicycle User Group has been clear about what we need to implement, or what the state needs to implement to make that safer. And I will let Councillor Clark talk about the Stirling Bridge barrier, as that was her addition to this amendment. But I will note that I've also asked that, you've changed more text without me knowing. Request that the CEO provide an update report to Council as soon as practicable, rather than the 11th of February. I'll ask for a comment on that in a moment, but requesting that the CEO, officers provide us a report to, so that we're all clear about what actions have been taken to request these, or to further this advocacy position. We know that we all go on break in January. The bridge closes on the 1st of Feb, and it will likely be chaos for the first little bit, or maybe it won't, but we need to understand what's happened with this advocacy position, rather than us just passing a motion to endorse it and then nothing happening, although I doubt that that would happen from staff. So yeah, I guess a question from staff onto why the date was taken off. Out.
Can we do that now before Mel?
Yeah, if we don't mind.
Through the chair, we know this is an advocacy position where we're asking the state government to do things. I'm not sure we can ask them to have a response by the 11th of Feb. So, but for those in the chamber, the Mayor and I are actually meeting with the Deputy Premier tomorrow morning, albeit online, where we'll start to introduce this conversation with her. We're also of the same opinion that we expect the bridge will close before we get a response to some of these, and we expect we'll get a drip-fed outcome. So we'll drip-feed the responses back as we go.
Thank you. Further comment?
Speak back, can I?
Yeah, for further comment? You asked a question.
Oh.
I see you still making a
So
comment.
my further comment on that question is the intention of the date of the 11th of Feb is to provide a report on what steps have been taken to further the advocacy position. So I understand that we might not have received a response, but it would still be good to have an update. Whether or not elected members would like that to happen in our first meeting back, I'm open on. I would like to have a date in there, so perhaps if it's the second meeting in Feb or the first meeting in March, to be clear about what steps have been taken to implement the advocacy position. But I will hear from other elected members as to their views on when that might happen.
Just through the chair, I might add, we can provide an information report through one of the February meetings to talk about that.
Thank you. Councillor Clark on the proposed amendment?
Yeah, I wanted to include the Stirling Highway Bridge. The Stirling Highway Bridge is literally going to be the only connection for people who are wanting to ride across, especially in peak hour, given they're not allowed to take their bikes on trains at the moment, and we're asking for that. It's an important connection so that people can get across. It's a very narrow pathway. The barrier that is on that pathway is extremely low. It did meet specifications at the time that the bridge was built, but it does not meet specifications today. And anyone who's travelled across that bridge knows that you will get rocks flicked up at you as you are walking across that bridge or riding across that bridge. You know that it's not wide enough to safely pass at any kind of pace on bicycles or anything like that. You've got to be really careful about everything. It slows everything down. With the barrier, those who are on the outside are really exposed to the trucks. They're literally coming past your shoulder as you're walking across. And the majority of people, if the bridge is not busy, they try and push themselves up against the riverside of that barrier just to try and mitigate some of the the rock flicking, the wind rushing from the trucks and all that sort of thing. So what we are wanting to see is better protection for people who are coming and going across that bridge during these works, something that covers up, something that really covers in to help people to feel safe, to want to take their kids across and to move safely across the bridge during these works until our fantastic new extra wide lanes are opened on the new bridge, which we really look forward to. Thanks.
Any other comment on the proposed amendment? Councillor Graham.
Oh, I can't let Councillor Williamson Wong down, Mr Mayor. So just on the funding, now, as you know, on Monday night I expressed my view on that I don't support any funding in this state government project, and they should be funding everything. So the way it reads, it almost looks like there is some funding, but can I have just a bit of clarification on, is that sort of the right wording, funding and support, or am I missing something here? Councillor Williamson Wong did indicate that they're advocating for funding, which is fine. And
I think if we get up to point 1, it says, so advocating for these things, and one of those things will be for funding, is how I read it. So it's adopting a position where whenever we're asked, this is what we're advocating for. It's not, like Councillor Williamson Wong said, actually committing us to funding. We may entertain some potential things in the future, but that will be a future conversation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Slaughter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a query or a clarification. In the summary notes of this item, it still does refer to the free transit zone that has been announced by the state government. That's great. Tick. I feel like, as acknowledged in this amendment, the things that have already been granted, we don't need to talk about as much in our advocacy to government anymore. Of course, our residents and ratepayers need to know all of the things that are available to them. But I think that's where we can move away from the misunderstandings between what we're asking for now and what's already been granted in the free transit zone versus free smart rider passes for people who tag on and off regularly.
Exactly. One is a free transit zone, the other is just free transit, full stop. Any other comment? I'm just going to briefly say, can I, before you close? Just because this is one of my favorite topics, which is freight movements in and out of the port. I think it would be remiss if I didn't mention that the freight restrictions during peak periods are entirely doable. Right now, most of the, like 85 to 87% of the freight goes in and out of that port Monday to Friday between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So the vast majority of the time during the week, or an overwhelming majority, there's very little freight on the roads. And during that time, about 20 to 25% of the trucks that go in and out of that port are actually running empty. And most of those empty runnings actually occur. It's a higher percentage during 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. When you get to the overnight hours, that actually drops. There's more full loading. And when you see those trucks that are carrying freight and going to our port or leaving the port, most of those trucks could be carrying up to 4 TEUs. Those are the smaller boxes, or four small ones or 2 large ones, or any combination thereof. Right now, the average is about, I believe, 1.6. So when we talk about eliminating empty running, it's not just the full empty trucks, it's also the potential carrying capacity on the trucks that are already visiting the port. So if those were to be moved to the nighttime, it really would make freight movements more efficient, as well as just get them off of our roads during the peak commuter time while this bridge is closed. So I know freight is the most exciting topic, but I'm just going to leave it there. If you have any questions, you can ask me afterwards. If there's no, did you want to close on the amendment, Councillor Williams? Oh, sorry, Councillor Kamado.
I'll take the opportunity. Well, can you just thank Councillor Williamson Wong and Councillor Clark, particularly Williamson Wong on this one, the Jemima show, as she calls it. Look, thanks for bringing these amendments forward, because they clearly outline a position of advocacy, which I think the community would very much appreciate. And it's something that's clearly supported by council. And I don't think these are big asks. I think that every little bit is going to help in what's going to be a pretty difficult time for a lot of people that live around that area and that do use the bridge. And, you know, no doubt when it's all finished, and hopefully it'll be quicker than what is projected, hopefully, we're going to be, you know, have a fantastic new bridge. But in the meantime, we need to do everything we can. So, yeah, thank you for that.
All right, Councillor Williamson Wong to close on the amendment.
Thank you. I will just take a moment to note, and I guess in response to Councillor Slaughter's points about talking about what's been announced and the free transit zone, which extends from Douro Road to Fremantle along South Terrace, it's important that we acknowledge that we have had a very productive relationship with the Bridge Alliance, I say we being the city, and that we, again as the city, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Director of Infrastructure, but I hope he seems to be nodding, so that's good, that we've had a productive relationship with them, and we're not here to say that it's all terrible and this is the only thing that we will be happy with and we need every single thing on this list. I guess from my perspective, we needed to have an advocacy position because there is a lot of concern amongst the city residents and elected members about the impact of the bridge closing. And we actually have no idea what it's going to be like. The state government has a position that is, you know, they probably think what they've announced is enough. And we all will never know. Well, we won't know if it's enough until the bridge actually closes and we see the impact of that. The intention of having a clear advocacy position that's been endorsed by council is that if it is chaos when the bridge closes, we can say this is what we believe will be really useful for our community and our businesses, so that the state government have some options there. But I do think it's important that we don't kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one, and we're not saying the state government and Bridge Alliance and Main Roads and PTA are all terrible. We're just saying we believe that these could be further actions that are taken, and it's also an incredible opportunity for us and for the state government to follow through with the intentions of state government and City of Fremantle to get people into active or public transport and to shift mindsets. If it is chaos and people end up on buses and trains and bikes, I think everyone might discover that it's not necessarily as scary as they believe it is, or it will also highlight the gaps that we need to address in the infrastructure that exists. So I just wanted to make that comment to close out.
Great, thank you. All those in favour of the amendment to the item? That's unanimous. Wonderful. Now we're back to the item as amended. Is there any further comment? Well, just let's see if anyone else has any further comment. Go ahead. Councillor Williamson Wong, do you want to make a comment on the item? I know you've spoken once, but it's our planning committee meeting, so we're a little flexible in how we run things, but you're kind of channeling your inner Councillor Sullivan, so in his absence, in his honour.
Thank you. I am speaking on behalf of the three missing elected... No, I'm not speaking on behalf, sorry. I'm taking up the room of the three missing elected members this evening. No, I just realised that I had that conversation and didn't sense from elected members whether or not they would like to specify a date in the when we're expecting a report to come back to council on the implementation of this. I personally would feel more comfortable if we had a date in there rather than as soon as practicable. So I am proposing a minor amendment.
I would accept a minor amendment of that nature. Would you want that to be the 11th? That was in your original proposal?
I think the minor amendment should be by March 2026, which will allow staff to bring a report to us either the first or the second, or both, if they felt.
Are you happy with that, Mel? Great. Then do we need to vote on this or minor amendments?
Yeah.
Okay, so moved Williamson Wong, seconded Councillor Clark. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay. Any further comment? No. All right, we'll put this item up for a vote. All those in favor? Yes, unanimous. All right, all 3 times. Good. Well, that one's done. Now we're on to our statutory reports, and there's 3 of them, items 14, 15, and 16. Does anyone wish to speak to any of the statutory report items? Seeing no, I will ask someone to move those en bloc. Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Kamada. All those in favor? Great. Committee and working group reports. I'm going to do the same thing because I kind of feel like in our confidential item we might have some discussions. Does anyone wish to speak to either item 17 or any of the audit and risk items? That would be item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. They're all pretty routine. I'll give you a minute to think. But seeing no, Councillor Slaughter?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention of the Walyallup Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group meeting that I was lucky enough to sit in on as a deputy last week. He's just asking if you want to talk to it. Oh, yes, I do want to talk to it.
Great. I'll pull out the working group information report. That's item 17.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Apologies.
No worries.
Carried away.
No, I'll just move the audit and risk items, or I won't. Would someone be willing to move those en bloc? Sorry. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Graham. All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. And now we're back to item 17, the working group information report. Moved by Councillor Slaughter, seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you. My apologies. It was a very good meeting, and I was really privileged to be part of it as deputy. And a few changes were made to how the structure is going to play going forward, which I thought might interest the members. The majority of members of the working group preferred to meet later in the day so that they could have more time to discuss some of the points. And in particular, one of the points that they're looking forward to discussing more next time is road naming, which I know is often in our inboxes from residents about road names that are appropriate to use in upcoming land developments. So I just wanted to mention that it is still on the agenda for the working group, and they are still thinking about which names may be appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. Any other comment on the working group information report? Nope, seeing none, I'll put that item up for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, so we have no motion for which previous notice has been given, no urgent business, but we do have one late item. Two, sorry. One is confidential. I was going to do that under confidential business, but they're both late. Yeah, take the point. Can I ask someone to move the cleaning services at WCC Library, Fremantle Town Hall, and Visitor Center, item 18? Councillor Slaughter, seconded by Councillor Graham. Any comment or? No? All right, we'll put that item up for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Congratulations to the new tenderee. Okay, now we do have confidential business, so I will have to ask someone to move that we go behind closed doors. That'll be Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favor? That's unanimous. So now we'll go behind closed doors and ask the members of the public. 7:23 p.m. Wow, good work.